I'm here to continue the conversation in 3D printing and additive manufacturing. I'm happy today. It's everyone's going through their different times and localities, and I'm here in Austin, Texas, and my guest today. Are you still up there in Brooklyn, New York, Karina?
I'm actually in Ithaca, New York.
Ithaca, yes, awesome. So you're up there in Ithaca right now, and I'm actually was born and raised in Tonawanda, New York, for the first 13 years of my life, which is right outside of Buffalo, Niagara Falls area. So I miss this time of year, the fall, the seasons. Hopefully in Ithaca, you're getting to see a little bit of that, because I know that is refreshing this time of year.
Oh yeah, it is gorgeous. I was actually at Stewart Park yesterday by the lake, and the weather looked so picturesque and beautiful. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, you got to see a bit of the change in the leaves and things like that, and different rusty colors and all that good stuff. Yeah, we don't see too much of that in Central Texas. I mean, some of the leaves do fall, but most of everything stays greenish. So it's not as drastic of a change. But I lived near Allegheny State Park up there, and that's a place I love to go visit because of the landscape and how beautiful it is with all the waterfalls and trees and all the leaves everywhere. So if you're out, you can get out and enjoy it. It's that time of year. So anyhow, Karina, wonderful to have you here. Thank you for being on the podcast.
Oh, well, thank you, Adam. I'm absolutely happy to be here and can't wait to have this conversation pop.
Yeah, I know, the interest came. We have to give a little props, of course, to Janet over at Link 3D.
Oh, yeah.
She was actually talking a little bit when I spoke with her about different people involved in actually making moves inside of STEM. There's a lot of people that are around the STEM programs, but maybe they just do a semester of a project and don't really jump in. But obviously, getting to know who you are, since we started getting to know each other here and setting up the podcast, and then seeing and listening to actually what you're doing. I've heard you on some other podcasts, and it's just amazing that it all seems like it started career-wise and everything about 2017, right? Is that right? Or I know you've done things before that, but that's what starts to be on your LinkedIn profile there, and it looks like from there forward, you've done a lot more than people have done over their career. So it was like, wow, what haven't you plugged into? And that's awesome. It's just good to see that ambition and someone going out there and really getting involved in many things. So kudos to that, and congratulations on doing that.
Thank you. Yeah, I wanted to, I kind of just always had a ton of energy in me, so I figured putting it into something would always be a good idea. And I happened to go to a pretty rigorous high school, so there were kids always doing something, and it was just kind of a breeding ground for tons of ideas and projects and things to work on. So that's kind of how I ended up working on Connect with Tech at one point, now working on Makers for COVID-19, and also now working with Janet on Women in 3D Printing's youth initiatives.
Yes.
So lots of exciting things.
Yeah, that is exciting. Yeah, that's you talked a little bit about that high school, and I've heard a lot of things about Brooklyn Technical High School, right? Is that correct?
Yeah.
That's where so like let some people know about that. I have a young daughter. She's 11, almost 12 in 5th grade. And I think that it's good to hear like different things that go on in curriculum. So talk a little about that and how that kind of drove your passion to where you are today.
Oh yeah. Brooklyn Tech has been, now that I'm no longer in high school, I realize just how much of an impact it has had on my life.
Yeah.
And I think you'll appreciate this along with your viewers. Yeah. Every freshman in Brooklyn Tech is mandated to take a digital design class in which we all learn how to 3D model. We get certified in Inventor Autodesk.
Hey, nice.
And we 3D print. So basically every student at Brooklyn Tech knows about 3D printing and knows how to 3D print. That's awesome. Something that I've always kind of found fascinating about the school. It really kind of dips our feet in. And for me, I very quickly realized how much I love 3D printing, and that, I might have some interest in engineering down the line. So I ended up exploring computer science, some mechanical engineering, realized fairly quickly that I don't really want to be an engineer as my day job. I wanted to do a lot more. And I also at that point realized that my true kind of passion lies within 3D printing. So I kind of started with 3D printing, loved it, jumped around to engineering, and came back to 3D printing. and now am focused more on just entrepreneurship and social impact and how we can improve the world of 3D printing and additive manufacturing, whether that be through curriculums for youth, or accessibility or policy, or even if it has something to do with making FDM 3D printers more sustainable. So there's kind of a bunch of things that I'm currently working on, and I'm super excited because they're all within the realm of 3D printing, which is kind of my favorite little thing.
No, it's exciting that, and again, just to put things in perspective now, are you in your first year at Cornell? Is that where you are?
I'm in my second year at Cornell.
Second year at Cornell. And when did that start?
That started, I think, in 2019. So I was a freshman during the pandemic.
Yeah. And wow, so I guess since you brought that up, I mean, that's really interesting. Obviously, you're somebody who becomes very networked and very involved in things, and the network has changed, so that's had to be some pains in there, but I'm sure you've come up, obviously, with the youth program that you're doing now, with women in 3D printing. There's a lot of things that you've, changed, and maybe you can give some insight into how that's been to go from expecting to be one way and now dealing with it the way it's been.
Yeah, I think, I kind of entered college having some expectations, but not really too much. I thought I would be free from my parents, like any high school senior.
That's the number one bonus, right? Yeah.
Getting to live on your own, getting to be away from your parents, getting to do whatever you want, and kind of just choosing what goes on in your life. No. And that's what I was really expecting. And in a sense, that's what I got. I wasn't really prepared for college, if I'm honest, or at least the mindset of college, of being in the atmosphere of, having to do lots of assignments and being a lot more on my own with that sort of thing. Because for me, extracurriculars were always easy.
Sure.
You ask me to write a curriculum or an outline for a curriculum, I'd love to do it. I will do the research for it. I'll get that done. No problem. But if you ask me to write an essay, that comes a lot harder, just because of the motivations. But I very quickly realized that, with the pandemic, everything kind of changed. And, I went back home with my few 3D printers back home to Brooklyn, New York. And I realized that there was a huge need for people for PPE, especially for medical workers.
Yep.
And especially in the month of March, that's when we started. I believe it was early or mid-March when we started.
Yeah.
And so that's when all of the PPE crises were happening. And of course, New York was at the center of it at the moment. So that's kind of what really inspired me to get started with producing PPE. And then from that point on, I kind of was trying to juggle production, managing our team of 300 amazing makers, and then also trying to be a student, which was its own kind of interesting challenge.
Yeah, none of it was kind of the same old, as you would say. I mean, it was, that's a lot to be taken on. Now, is it Makers for COVID? Is that the right name of the program?
Yeah, Makers for COVID-19.
Yeah, for COVID-19. Now that's what you're talking about, working with the different, printers out there and the people that are actually making these PPE devices and getting them out to where they can be used. And I know that there's been a lot of, there was a lot of that going on. It was like a shining part of what was happening in 3D printing. But at the same time, it's very confusing because some of it, there's even a little bit of a backlash of maybe some of it wasn't that helpful or not the right thing or the right approved thing. But I think, so what was that like? What was that push and pull like? The iterations you went through and all that good stuff. How did that go?
Yeah, so, and I think that's really where the need came out for Makers for COVID-19 to emerge. I mean, in early February and early March, the 3D printing PPE world was moving at lightning speed. Mm-hmm. I remember there was 1 week where everyone was talking about ventilator valves. And then 2 weeks later, everyone was talking about how you should never print ventilator valves because you are not a professional, which, makes a ton of sense. It has a lot to do with the granularity of the 3D print and, sanitation techniques and all of those details. So people who were printing ventilator valves never should have printed ventilator valves, and it was a complete mess. And, while that was happening, there was also like a new model of face shield that was coming out every other day or every other week. And then within the next week or so, everyone would start printing that face shield model or an ear saver or whatnot. And so things were moving crazy fast.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where there was a need for makers for COVID-19, or some sort of group to come in and go through all the resources that are out there and consolidate them for anyone who wanted to start 3D printing PPE, but didn't want to go through all the work that it took of like doing the research, making sure they're up to regulation, and making sure that they can find all the hospitals that need that PPE. And so that's kind of where we came in. And, you know, the goal really was to let people 3D print PPE without making it their day job. Because that's what it felt like for a lot of people. And that's why so many makers have, you know, sadly burnt out now with producing PPE and have kind of taken a step back.
Yeah, it's been a wild progression to see that happen. And it is a beautiful thing. I mean, there's a lot that happens in finding out you're wrong, right? You know, and a lot of people, especially in the manufacturing world, that's hard to change when things are already rolling. But, you know, like you were saying, some of the power of 3D printing is to be able to look at that, hear that, go to the right resources and make the right adjustments because of the community, because of the network. But then also, besides just being able to say, give someone a correct file, what you are also looking at and have been looking at is the distribution side, which is, that's where like you say, the rubber meets the road. I mean, you're really going out there and finding where it's needed. So, you know, being in New York City, you know, what was that like where you were? Were you part of that, or were you just doing outside of the city, or what did that distribution look like at the time?
Distribution was really, really interesting, and it's definitely changed over time.
Yeah.
There was one point where I posted on my social media that I was, you know, taking requests for PPE, and, you know, I got flooded. And that was something that the makers and I all took on and started producing PPE for. And for, you know, 2 to 3 months, we would have so many requests coming in through our system that we just had to rely on that. That was really kind of what we used to know where the demand was. And then after that, it was interesting because, you know, slowly we were no longer getting any requests, which I found funny because I also knew that by talking to a lot of these medical professionals, there was still a need. It just shifted from, say, hospitals to more clinics and more medical offices who might have been under prioritized or not have received federal donations. So we kind of shifted gears to actually reaching and finding these facilities so that we can kind of let them know that we exist. Because, you know, as much marketing or as much outreach as we do, until we actually like go after the individuals there, we couldn't really help them. So we did a lot of that, and we found more need, and that's kind of how we went about helping those people that actually needed it. But that's kind of one of the trends that we've been seeing. It's kind of been very interesting because early on there was just people were knocking on our doors like crazy, but now it's definitely slowed down.
Yeah, and of course that comes along with there not being a supply at a certain time, or there'd be a lot of confusion of what's right. And now everyone's settling into the normal distribution chains are picking up the pace, and everything's a lot more available than it was. But so that particular cause is still like people could still go online and find all that information. Is it a specific website, or where could they find that?
Yeah. All of our information is on the makersforcovid19.com website. You can find literally everything on there. We are very pro open source, so any guide that we create, even if it's discounts for materials, we list it on our website, so anyone can find.
That's makers with an S and then for FOR, not the number 4, but FOR. Yeah, COVID. And it's -19 or just COVID-19?
It is, let me just check for you to make sure we got it right. It's no dash. So makers for FOR COVID-19.
Great, and I'll put a link to that in our conversation, of course. But yeah, that's great. I mean, that is a lot of work, and even going down to the distributor level, most people are just saying, "Hey, here's something that's available. Try this if you'd like," But yeah, getting it out there and getting it in front of the people that need it. Wow, that's a lot of work. So again, that's something that being involved as you are, it's great to see you take action when it's not something that was planned as part of your year. It's a totally different thing when things kind of cross section and your plans go awry. What do you do that can help in front of your current situation? So, wow, awesome stuff. Yeah, and that now is that Wear Alpha that you have, right? That's your own product line for clothing.
Yeah, that is something I started prior to COVID-19, and really, fairly early on, but I ended up at this point, like you said, there have just been so many things that have changed, and we're living in a new normal that I would never even call normal. So I've come to a point where there have just been so many great opportunities for me as a result of working on Makers for COVID-19 that I learned a lot about myself and what I'm really passionate about. And I realized that it has a lot to do with making social impact within 3D printing. And that's kind of why I've been slowly shifting away from Wear Alpha into the Women in 3D Printing Youth Initiatives to actually achieve a more sizable impact through that. So that's kind of a little tidbit on Wear Alpha, but it's still a mission that I hold dear to my heart. Sure. And the kind of core values that it was built on are still everything that I carry with myself going into Women in 3D Printing Youth Initiatives and some of the other projects that I hope to work on into the future. But it's definitely something that I want to keep doing on a bigger scale. But for now, Wear Alpha is just going to have to be on pause for a little longer.
Yeah, that's I know that there was a lot was going on, and I know you've changed a lot over the last 6 months, like we all have. So it's great to see you get involved at the next level of actually being, like you're saying, the social impact side. The distribution is part of it, and then working with that youth series is amazing. It's going to be fun. I know I've checked out a few of them. So talk about that a little bit, like what's going to be happening coming up, and what do you think of everything that's been happening with the Women in 3D Printing? I know I'm actually a media partner with them going into this new conference coming up. Yeah, the January conference, TIPE.
The TYPE conference.
Yeah, the TYPE conference over there. That's going to be a great event, and looking forward to that in January. So what's been going on with you with the youth program? How has that been going so far?
Yeah, there's been tons of amazing progress. We have an awesome team together of a few students and an awesome grant writer, and I believe he's also a NASA teaching fellow who's working with us to create this curriculum. Beautiful. And basically the whole kind of basis of the curriculum is to focus on 3D printing from a creative lens, because we typically teach 3D printing from an engineering and mathematical and problem-solving perspective, which is great and amazing, but it really doesn't attract students that are kind of already feel not aligned with STEM. So creating a curriculum that really focuses on STEM from that creative component of what can I design? Can I create makeup packaging? Can I design shoes? Can I design jewelry? Can I design what a car could look like? Are kind of the mindset that we want to approach this, so that we can really get more students that are typically not interested in STEM actually interested in 3D printing. Because with the world that we're kind of moving into, there's really no way for people to not be exposed to technology or not be exposed to 3D printing. And that's one of the things that I'm really trying to push forward here. And we're trying to create this curriculum to do just that. So that's been coming along really great. And we're just trying to work on some outlines, and hopefully by next summer have a few pilot schools that are actually ready to run with it. So that is what's going on there. And we're working with some really awesome groups and partners, of course, in the additive manufacturing space to do all that. And on like a bigger scale, we're also hoping to work on some policy work. So,
oh wow, cool.
Actually making our curriculum apply. So that's one thing that's also in the works, and hopefully we can bring it all to some bigger picture goal.
Yeah. No, that's a great start. I know that's a good, it's a great group of people over there to get involved with, and the network is wonderful.
Oh yeah.
But actually, like you were saying, being able to see that turn into a curriculum that's going into the schools, that's really awesome. I mean, I have, again, I speak about my daughter a lot, and she's, going into the 5th grade, but back when she was going into 1st grade, they had what you were talking about. Her school just happened to have a 3D printing class that was part of the creativity side,
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, and that is really, I mean, that's made all the difference in her life of understanding it. But the things that attract her are what you're talking about, the creative side of stuff. She gets into it when she could think about, what she's going to design next, or changing something that she was going to put on a necklace or what have you. All of a sudden, that's really cool. She's taking a look at how to look at remaking that inside of there. So those kind of things, of course, creativity is what drives all of it. You're hoping people are creative when they go into, even to any industry, just to go in with just your training and no creativity. I'd like to see someone try to, break the bounds, do something different, bring something different to the table. And that's all part of it. So I was just thinking when you're saying that science, technology, engineering, and math and creativity should be in there also above all of it, because it's part of it.
Exactly.
It's a big part of it. So good to focus on that for the youth. That's awesome.
Exactly. And you can't really solve problems unless you're creative. So that's a huge part of it, and really cool to hear that your daughter has that teaching course. I mean, I think the beautiful thing too is by teaching 3D printing to people who don't really like 3D printing, you're also teaching them an engineering mindset that they wouldn't normally be exposed to, and there's so much power in that.
There is. It's really special, especially having something where you can create at such an early age. I mean, even with the simple things, we've done things like having, we have an electronics board that you can get at any toy store. But, when you do certain things, you're able to like maybe start up these 3 bulbs on this side or something like that. And that's interesting. That's fun for any kid at any age, even a big kid like myself. So I think those things, even the simple things, you talk about 3D printing, but there are things that stem, a mind of a young person to actually grow in a different direction and to take on different things. So that's just great. And the 3D printing is just another tool that does that, but you see it in so many things today. It could be so much more. So that's great. That's really cool. I love to see that. And I love to see what the Women in 3D Printing series turns out to be, because that's going to be a lot more of that educational path that I think a lot of young people can tune into. And I know I enjoy them myself. So
that's awesome. Well, stay tuned. We're gonna be coming up with cool stuff fairly soon.
Yeah, no, makes sense. Now, you said you're going in your sophomore year over there at Cornell. Is it economics and also business and marketing that you're really focused on over there? Is that correct?
Yeah. At Cornell, there's definitely been a lot of things that I've learned about myself, and I realized that I have a really weird, unique interest for marketing, and that's something that I want to explore more.
Yeah, that's
I'm currently in the applied economics and management major at the Dyson School of Business here, so a little unexpected, but I figured after going through 4 years of intense engineering education and going to hackathons almost every weekend, 3D printing here and there, and doing tons of things, I might as well explore business and try out entrepreneurship and kind of see how I can bring the two worlds together of, tech, 3D printing, and entrepreneurship. And I figured that, marketing is a cool way to do that. Exploring strategy is another really cool way to do that. And so is entrepreneurship. So those are kind of the 3 main things that I'm focused on while I'm here in terms of academia, but there's always a bunch of things that I'm hoping to explore, whether it's psychology or
Nice.
I recently took a philosophy class, and even just some biology for fun.
Yeah, might as well do it while you can. No, that's a good point though about the marketing and business side of things. I think there's a lot of good things obviously that people miss on that side if you're just focused on engineering itself. But a lot of those are natural abilities that people might have. But a lot of it is learned. You know, a lot of it's going through those different case studies and understanding how things were done and what you can do to improve things going forward with the way you present things and the way you build a company or work with people. So that's another side. I was like, oh, really cool that you're combining all of it and not just, you know, I find myself sometimes in that picture my whole life is I don't focus just on one thing. I like to check out all the different sides of it and kind of put them together in a weird mix of, hey, this is, I think that's life, right? It's not just one thing you're doing. You got to incorporate all of it.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that, you know, you're never really taught as a student. When you're asked as a kid, like, who do you want to be? It's like doctor, lawyer, and it's one thing, versus as I've kind of grown through these past few years, I realized that, you know, I don't have to be just one thing. I can, you know, explore education for this period of time. I can jump into that later. I can bridge strategy and this here. I can go into a completely different weird field of, you know, business meets additive. And that's kind of the beauty that I recently learned of just, you know, exploring all of my interests and seeing where they all meet.
Yeah, no, it's important to harness all those abilities because I found out even over the years that when I ignore something that's there, it usually comes back in one way or another. So it's best to pay attention to that early.
Exactly.
But yeah, that's really cool. I know, you know, like you said, there's a lot more to be had, a lot more to do inside of that whole space. So wow, being, you know, in your sophomore year, you still have a ways to go with things, but you've done so much going forward into there. So talk a little bit more. I know we kind of went through a few things, but like prior to everything, you know, like what was your big ambition as a child? What made you kind of go through these things and come to this point of your life?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I can start off with my background on 3D printing and how I got started.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so basically I started a lot with my high school. They kind of really jump-started everything for me. And from that point on, I actually got to be an intern at NYU's Makerspace, which is where I learned about the different types of 3D printers and that there's not just one type of 3D printer, there's actually stereolithography or SLS 3D printing and so many other cool types of machinery, including laser cutters, vinyl cutters, CNCs. And that's kind of how I got into the whole world of prototyping and building and making. And from that point on, I actually ended up having the opportunity to build a computer to send to a school in Tanzania. I did that and I absolutely loved kind of solving some of the problems that went along with it. And from that point on, realized that I should get my own 3D printer. And I ended up getting one and realized surprisingly that they're actually not that expensive. You can get a 3D printer for $200 to $300.
Good starter.
Which really, that's considering what I initially thought a year or two ago. I thought 3D printers were in the thousands.
And some are, but yeah, most are actually, yeah.
Most of them are. But you can still get a fairly good 3D printer for $200 to $300. So I was really surprised by that, and I ended up getting my own, and I grew a collection fairly quickly. I'm up to 6 now.
Nice. That's sweet.
I have one SLS printer. I have one Ender. I have one Prusa, and then I have 2 Monoprice minis, and then I have a chocolate 3D printer that I got from Germany.
Whoa. They actually prints chocolate now, you're saying?
Yeah, it 3D prints with chocolate.
You're talking my language. Chocolate and peanut butter, that's my biggest downfall. I'll go for chocolate peanut butter anytime, so I can't wait till they could print both of those.
Oh, that will be a very good day.
Yeah, that's great. So what are you making out of the chocolate 3D printer? Just more chocolates, obviously.
You can actually make a lot of really cool things. I've been making some really cool geometric cups and then just pouring milk in them and kind of making little drinks of chocolate milk. But yeah, you can do anything. I mean, one thing that I want to do, and I'm going to do this fairly soon, is 3D print a chocolate chess set. And as soon as I get someone's piece, I'm gonna.
There it is. I'm like, then what do you do? Okay, you eat when you win. There you go. That's the way to do it. Good way to play.
Oh yeah.
Well, cool. So you were talking about that. That's how you got started in 3D printing, and those are now you've had this collection there. Yeah, that's that's a good progression, obviously. And the SLS machine, I take it's a very small SLS machine, but you're working with actual powders then for material.
Oh, sorry. I
SLA?
didn't mean SLA. I just realized SLA.
SLA. Okay, it's the resin. Okay.
My apologies.
No, that's fine. That's fine. It's very close. Same thing. Laser. You're working either with the actual liquid or resin there for the SLA, and then powder for the SLS. But you're still laser melting each layer by layer. So even with the resin form there, that's awesome. That's really, you can do some really neat things that way. So that's really cool. And of course, that's being here in Austin. That's where a lot of that started. On the SLA and SLS side, coming from UT and all that whole Carl Decker program and everything over there. So yeah, there's a lot of background history here that's really neat that has to go with that. The DTM guys and everything like that started before 3D System was right here in Central Texas. So a lot of cool history around here. It's cool to have a lot of things to do on that side of it with UT so close. I mean, that's a campus right there now. Being around at a lot of college campuses, and seeing the way different setups are. My gosh, UT is in downtown Austin. And it has downtown Austin wrapped all around it. So it's like one of the coolest cities in America, and you've got a campus downtown. I don't see how that could be good. I would be like out in the town every night, rather than being in class. So it's I'm glad that I don't think I would have survived, obviously, with a campus that's downtown like that. But it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
I can imagine it must be rough for NYU students. They're literally in the center.
That's another one. Yeah, right in the middle of the city. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's got to be difficult when you're in the middle of a really cool city. A lot of them are just out of the city or in a small town somewhere in the country, So those downtowns are a hard place to keep concentration going for studies, I'm sure. So, well, cool. No, it's yeah. No, it's great to talk to you, Karina. I know that there's a lot going on right now, and this is a time when people don't have a lot of the common interaction that they're used to. So being able to reach out and talk to people like yourself, and also to pick up the conversation on STEM and what's happening inside of STEM, especially according with 3D printing. There's a lot of great things happening out there. So thanks for sharing your story a little bit here, and look forward to checking back in with you. But it's been a good time. Anything else to share while we have you here?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me, Adam. I really can't wait to keep you in the loop about all the things that are going on, because things are just changing so much, and there's just so many cool things happening. And I can't wait to be on here again in the next year or so and share some more cool things.
Please, yes, I definitely want to check in back with you. And there's a lot going, especially with the youth series, and we can catch up on what's happening there. But again, you're right there in your sophomore year, so there's a lot more to come, and we'll definitely be checking back in with you. So thanks again, Karina. We'll talk to you soon.
Yes, awesome. Thank you so much, Adam.